Oh, snap, son. It's go time. Gondor? Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? Where was Gondor when our enemies closed in around us? Where was Gondor when Saquon Barkley dropped a 30-burger on the Packers this week? Well, my friends, you are not alone because we're back. Welcome into the dungeon of the Doctors of Doom, where I am your host, Alex the Shark Sparks, and joining me as always is the man with the hot mic and the hotter takes, Mitch. Holy shit, he's actually on time this week. We were waiting for Vinny Black, as well as our fearless producer, the man who once boldly wore a sweater vest to a sporting event, Vinny Tooch Tooch Train Santucci. For reasons unknown, some people actually listened to us running our mouths last week, so we're here to run it back and make fools of ourselves all over again. We'll overreact to week one, give each other a pat on the back for our good calls last week, and roast each other for our bad ones. If that sounds good to you, or even if it doesn't, we hope you stay a while and listen. Say hello to all our peeps out there, fellas. Really?
What's up, guys? I didn't know what Mitch was
Really?
doing. I thought he was gonna hit us with I thought Mitch was gonna hit us with a "Hey guys" there.
No one said anything. Mitch's mic is muted. This is great. This is great. Great pod, guys. Fantastic. Woo!
Hey guys, how's it going?
Yep, this is what I'm working with. So for everyone listening to the podcast, this is what I'm working with. I write that whole intro, give everything. Vinny says nothing. Mitch's mic straight up muted.
Yeah, I wanted to mute my mic so I didn't talk during his great intro. But yeah, one thing I will add though, while I was muted, was I'm impressed with how many people listened last week. So I'm actually excited that knowing that it's going to be more than just you and me, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was just going to be the three of us talking and maybe Chris listening, so this is great.
Yeah. I was so hyped for my Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown stack that I was like, you know what, I'm going to do the next podcast from Philadelphia. So here I am.
Yeah, that's why we're having to record this in an entirely different way. You might hear key clicks as I'm having to use push to talk on Discord to not get reverb. So, yeah. And for those that are watching the stream, you'll notice that right now I'm just showing this epic match between the Sharks and Professor Chaos. And you'll notice who's winning. The guy who scored the most points this week, even though CBS thought he had the second worst team. Give it up for the Sharks, ladies and gentlemen. Woo, party!
Yeah, let's taper that back a little bit. You got 30-something points from your kicker and defense. You got 30% of your points from the kicker and defense. Let's dial that back.
I've preached Fantasy D for 21 years.
What a perfect segue, Alex Sparks. Talking about the week one overreactions. I thought that was just a great lead-in talking about your fantasy team scoring the most points.
Yeah, is that how it's going to be? And for those, you notice, I put my money where my mouth is. Unlike other people, I traded for and started my boy Kirk Thuggins this week against Matt. And yes, it did cost me 5 fantasy points by starting him over Dak Prescott, but still got the dub and stuck true to my actions. Whether or not he's still my starter next week is neither here nor there. But I stuck with him. I did what I said I was going to do. I back it up. I don't just talk the talk. I walk the walk. But yeah, Vinny, if you want to talk about our overreactions. So what we're going to do today is we're going to each give you guys some, we got more to talk about, but we're going to talk about some of our overreactions to week one. Stuff, hot takes that we think based on what we saw week one. And does anyone want to start us off? If not, I can go first. Mitch or Vinny, either one of you guys want to get this ball rolling?
I think we give it over to the hot take specialist to lead us off. And we all know that he has terrible opinions, so I think it should go to Mitch.
I mean, I second that.
I feel like after a week's fun podcast, I'm sitting pretty here, but I'll keep going. Let's go with I'll do with a fantasy one. This will be a hot take. The Avengers right now have the number one QB in fantasy and the number one running back, and we'll end the year with both of those players.
I mean, I don't know how of a take it is to say that Josh Allen's going to be the number one fantasy QB, but all right.
Okay, well then we can go back to the draft. But I'm just kidding. All right, I'll just double down with Darnold.
Yeah, our hot take specialist has terrible hot takes.
I mean, look, if you want to if you want your hot take to be Barkley, that's fine. He was the the fifth running back taken. So like, if you want that to be your hot take, I'm fine with that.
I was just kind of joking around right now, pointing out I had them. But
and yet, hold on, Mitch. Let me look at the scores though, because 89 last time I checked is lower than my 97. Oh.
I got 12 points from my kicker and defense.
Oh yeah, you got 34 from the QB. I only needed 8. You can't win in DoD without a quarterback. Kirk Cousins says otherwise. 8 points, W, top score. Let's go.
Okay, here's the other question: are you going to start Cousins and double down the rest of the year?
The rest of the year, no, because I'm a smart fantasy manager. I'm gonna play matchups, right? I'm gonna play matchups. I benched Dak because he was playing Cleveland. All right.
Here's my real one. I was just joking about that fun. My real one is Kirk Cousins will be benched by week 9 for Michael Penix Jr.
All right. Well, let's take a look at the schedule here. So next week's a good matchup for him. Philly's got one of the worst ranked defenses. So next week, I think it's going to be a good indicator of whether or not you're on the right course there, Mitch. Because if Cousins struggles next week against Philly, I think you have a chance with your hot take. However, me as a big Thuggins homer, obviously that's not going to happen. He's going to blow Philly out of the water. He's going to drop 40 on him, and it's going to be fine.
All right. Does anyone else have any? Because I could do a couple more.
No, we'll rotate. Vinny, you got one for us?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to pull back off of maybe Mitch's initial claim, and I'm going to say that the Buffalo Bills will not make the playoffs this year.
Ooh, all right. You got any evidence to back that up? What are you going with on that?
Speaking of that QB1, I think the QB1's going to have to do a whole lot to get that team through, but I will say, it was pretty much the first half. They did a little bit of the second half, but I thought the Cardinals dominated on both sides of the ball there at the beginning of the game, and let's be real, a hot take would also say the Cardinals would make the playoffs, and they're so bad I'm not even going to say that. So the Bills do not make the playoffs.
Yeah, for those not privy, we have a text chat, for the podcast, and Vinny was definitely popping off early on in the first half of that Cardinals game about how good they are this year and how all these great reads on Murray were and everything. But the second half his tone changed a little bit based on how things went. I think Murray had 136 passing yards or something. Not a great game.
I think after the first quarter, my hot take was going to be that Kyler Murray was the league MVP, and I think he threw for 20 yards in the second half. So obviously, we are not sticking with that.
Yeah, and for those who follow actual fantasy football podcasts, not ours, but good ones, that was Matthew Berry's ride or die this year was Kyler Murray. So not off to a great start for Matthew Berry. Anywho. My first overreaction is that Joe Mixon with the Texans will lead the NFL in rushing, shades of Arian Foster back in 2010. In the last 3 years, only 5 running backs have gone over 300 carries in a season, and none of them did that last year, by the way. The highest being King Henry at 349 totes in 2022. I think Mixon's going to lead the NFL in rushing on the back of getting to 350 carries this year. So while he may not have the efficiency, he's going to get there on volume alone. He had 30 carries in week 1. So as it stands, he's on pace for 510 on the season. So I'm not calling full 500 carries, but I think he's going to get 350. He's going to lead the league in rushing, purely volume based.
Actually, 100% on board with that hot take. To the point, Alex, where actually I considered that as my hot take for tonight was Joe Mixon finishing, somewhere similar. So I love it.
Can I add on that?
Yeah, of course.
Just kind of the same thing. If they're going to give Alvin Kamara over 15 carries a game, I think Alvin Kamara has a potential to be an RB1 overall.
Yeah, but I don't think the Saints are always going to be up 45-0. So I don't know that they're going to be able to do that. Whereas I think the Texans, with their high-powered offense, are going to be in every game they play. They're not going to win every game, but I think they're going to. I don't think there's going to be a lot of games where the Texans are down 20 and have to abandon the run.
Sure.
So that's why I think it's a safer bet. All right, moving on. Let's go to anyone else got a second hot take. Mitch, back to you. You said a few. What's your second hot take?
Well, I would like to make Darnold a Pro Bowler. Let's double down on that.
Yeah, go for it.
Hot take overreaction week 1. Even though I did have a little buyer's remorse in the yardage of Darnold.
Oh, do you want to talk about that, or are we just going to move past that?
We can move past it or talk about it. Either one. I'm just going to be honest about it. I had a little massive buyer remorse of Darnold because I wanted the bet to keep the state of Cousins. But Darnold, I was watching that game and I was just like, oh man, now my happiness is being tied to Darnold instead of Cousins doing bad. It's like, how did I mess this up? And then he completes the first pass, and then the second, and the third, and it just doesn't stop. It literally doesn't stop until his 15th attempt of the game.
Yeah, I think he had 14 straight completions before there was an incomplete pass, and that was a tip ball or something. It was a close pass.
Okay, so let me be real here. I didn't it's not necessarily Darnold. It was any QB because of Cousins, my dislike for Cousins. Any QB who was starting for the Vikings, I would have talked a big game for. So yeah, it's just a little uncomfortable at 5,200 yards. And now it's not even. Now it's like in hindsight, I'm not even caring if Cousins does well. I'd be like, okay, cool. I just really like this Darnold thing. It's great because I just kind of walked myself into it and then had buyer's remorse, and I seem to be correct. Not maybe as well as week one, but I'll just double it down with it, make it more fun, make him a Pro Bowler.
All right, Darnold, a Pro Bowler. And if it makes you feel better, it was 4,500 yards, not 5,200. I mean, if you pull 5,200, that'd be impressive. But
oh, what did I say?
you said 5,200. I was like, all right.
I meant to say 4,200. Sorry, 42 to 45. Sorry, that's what I meant to say.
All right.
Yeah, I would just like to highlight on that one as well that when he said a little buyer's remorse, he complained about it for about 3 days in a row. So let's just at least call it spade a spade. There was severe buyer's remorse. There may have been some crying involved. We're not sure. We weren't on ground for it, but Mitch was definitely fighting those promising demons there.
I asked, can you guys let me out off air of the yardage on Darnold and keep it about Cousins? And right away it was set in stone. No. So then the next 2 days I had fun crying about it. But yeah, I did ask for out on the yardage of Darnold.
Yeah, because when you go to your bookie after you make a bet with him, and then you have buyer's remorse on the bet, your bookie always just lets you out of it with no issues, right? Oh yeah, don't even worry about it. Of course, his first answer is no.
I'm doubling down.
All right, he's doubling down. All right, well I'm gonna jump the line here, Vin, because that kind of leads into my second overreaction, if that's okay with you. So
yeah, of course.
My second overreaction is that Nick Chubb will be the comeback player of the year. So of the 10 people that had the best odds to win that award coming into the season, 7 of them played like absolute garbage week 1. After that, there was Richardson who popped off. But is it really a comeback when you only ever played like 2 games in your entire career? I found that hard to call that a comeback. He was a rookie. He played like a game and a half, then got hurt. So it's hard for me to call him a comeback player. So even though he popped off, I'm not willing to give him this award. Not saying I don't think he's going to be good. But that only leaves 2 guys, Sam Darnold and Nick Chubb. And I have a vested interest in rooting against Sam Darnold. So clearly, I'm picking Nick Chubb to come back from injury. Everyone playing so poorly week 1 opens the door for Chubb, because Chubb's not playing yet, right? So like the hardest part for him to run the award is that he's not going to have as long of a resume. Well, if everyone else on the list, their resume is crappy until Chubb starts playing, it doesn't matter that Chubb missed games. If anything, it's a nod in his favor. So even though he's coming off that brutal injury and he's not back yet, the others faltering out of the day gives him a chance. Cleveland looked bad in week 1 on offense, especially their running game, which has been historically great. Well, not historically, but over the past decade, they've had a great running game. They have not looked good. Their best runner, Ford, was averaging less than 4 yards a carry. In fact, if you take away his 11-yard long that came at the end of the game, he averaged only 3 yards a carry, which is abysmal in the National Football League. If you're not getting a 3 to the third, you're not even doing anything. So I think people thought it was going to be a committee into the season, but they decided, nope, not committee, ride Ford, which means once Chubb gets back, if he's healthy, I think he slots right back into his role as the 1A back in Cleveland, and he's just a significantly more talented player. I think Chubb has a chance to come back, win that comeback player of the year, with a balance of him making Cleveland better and all the other candidates being so poor.
What are the other 10?
I don't know all 10 off the top of my head, but the ones that I remember seeing on the list were obviously there's Darnold, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Richardson, who again, he didn't play poorly, but I just don't think he should qualify in my opinion. Deshaun Watson. It was mostly quarterbacks, to be honest with you. I don't remember, I don't remember all 10, but like all the others did not play well at all.
Tracks.
So
I'll pull it up.
So the thing I'm thinking about. Wait, what just happened? Are we still here?
Yeah, we're still here.
Yep.
Oh, wait. Hold on, real quick, Mitch. So to answer the rest of your question, Daniel Jones, your boy Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson were the ones that I missed. So yeah. So going to the list: Aaron Rodgers, bad game. Joe Burrow, bad game. Kirk Cousins, bad game. Sam Darnold, I'm not counting him. F that guy. Anthony Richardson, good game, but I don't think he deserves to win this award. Daniel Jones, bad game. Kyler Murray, bad game. Russell Wilson, bad game. Deshaun Watson, bad game. And by bad game for Russell Wilson, I mean didn't even play. He didn't get the starting job, so.
That's a crazy list. The thing with Chubb, I'll just go there first, is they lost their whole offensive line by like week 2 last year, and 2 of their tackles, I'm pretty sure, were not playing this game. They held them out week 1. Their left tackle and right tackle are studs, and they were held out. I'm almost positive. I would like to double check. That's what I was trying to do right now. But so I think with the Browns, it needs to be like a wait and see. The only thing I have against the comeback player of the year for Chubb is I just don't know what they're really telling us about his injury and when he'll actually be back. So he might not get the actual, like you said, time to become the comeback player. And then lastly, how I don't trust the voters for comeback player of the year on anything. And that's why I said oof when you made this hot take, because how did DeMar Hamlin lose comeback player of the year to Flacco? Like, I just don't understand how that happened. So, like, I just don't trust the voting for any of the comeback players. I have no idea what they're looking for. DeMar Hamlin came back from the actual literal dead, and they didn't give him comeback player of the year. They gave it to Flacco. After that happened, I was just like, what are they looking for? So
well, I mean, I would like to point out this is the overreaction hot takes. So like,
yeah,
that I'm over. Yes, Cleveland's offense might be better in week 2, but I'm not reacting to let's wait and see if they have better players week 2. I'm reacting to what happened week 1. In week 1, the running game, which is historically, well, not historically, but over the past decade, has been a great running game. No matter who's running for them, was really, really bad. And Nick Chubb, when he comes back, he's by far the best runner on the team, even coming off injury. So I think that's where that hot take comes in from, between everyone else doing poorly and him not really having competition there. Ford's going to be their guy. We already know he's better than Ford because he was better than Ford when Ford was there last year before he got hurt. So
I just want to hop on this DeMar Hamlin thing for a second. The fact that he was even in competition for comeback player of the year is absolutely wild to me. The dude played in 5 games and had 2 total tackles last year. And he finished second in comeback player of the year because he lived.
What did he come back from? Like, what did Joe Flacco come back from to win that award? Like, Nick Chubb is coming back from a gruesome injury, so I kind of like, the hot take. Like,
I mean, Flacco came back from not being in the league, so like, I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, so like, yes, DeMar Hamlin making a comeback was a huge deal, but as far as like, I think the award, they gave the award based on performance. It went from a guy who was so bad he was no longer rostered to he led a team to the playoffs. I think that's why DeMar Hamlin barely played last year. Like, and again, I'm not knocking him at all. What he did was amazing. It's amazing that he, came back from the dead, was able to actually roster up for an NFL team again. That's all amazing. But that's more of like an emotional, moral victory, much more so than like what you did on the football field victory. So I think that's where that voting came in to play last year for Flacco.
And I'll just be really quick. Chubb's supposedly he's guaranteed out the first 4 weeks, but with that injury and the timeline of when he had the surgery, it's probably going to be 8 weeks, closer to like 7 weeks.
Again, This is an overreaction hot take, Mitch.
No, I'm just saying for people in the listen. It's just how much he'll play.
All right. Speaking of, we got one more to go. Vinny, what is your second overreaction hot take?
So I am a known Bo Nix hater. I think that's pretty prevalent. So it would not be a hot take to say that Bo Nix sucked, because anybody that watched him in week 1, the Broncos gonna Bronco, Bo Nix gonna Bo Nix. But my hot take is related to rookie quarterbacks. Over the last 3 or 4 years, about 3,500 passing yards is the bare minimum for quarterbacks who play all 17 games. I'm gonna say that no rookie quarterback throws for 3,500 yards this year. I'm including Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. Not a single one, if they start all 17 games, hits a 3,500-yard passing mark.
But Jaden Daniels might get 3,500 rushing yards.
Yeah, I was gonna check on Daniels to see how he did week 1, because I know he had a ton of rushing. Okay, yeah, 184.
I was looking at it too.
So, but I'm trying to show, we have had requests, by the way. We've had requests to be able to see more than just our screen. Once we have cameras, we will try to implement them. Mitch and I don't currently have them on our computers. So you would just be watching Vinny's face. And right now, Vinny can't even show his face. He barely has internet. We're having to record this on Discord instead of Zoom. So if it sounds different than last week, we apologize. But, in the future, we are going to try to have our face visible or something for you to look at, us yelling at each other. as opposed to just the screen, and I'll try to do a better job of navigating the screen and something interesting.
Are you showing something right now, Alex?
I have it set up to only show my internet, like only show my Google Chrome, so you can only see the DoD.
Gotcha. You want to pull up? I have a topic real quick. Do you want to pull up the player stats from week 1 from our league?
Sure.
Go to wide receiver.
Oh, wait, are we done with hot takes? Because I had one more.
Oh, go for it.
I think, as a fellow Raider fan across the aisle here, and Alex Sparks, I think that he will agree with me on this hot take, that the rest of the world finally gets to see Josh Jacobs for who he really is. He is a garbage running back who will not average 4 yards per carry this year, and who will not finish as an RB1, and will be a borderline RB2 running back in fantasy football.
Yeah, I mean, the one season where he popped off, so remember when I was talking about Joe Mixon, how there were only 5 running backs who had more than 300 carries in the last 3 years? One of those guys was Josh Jacobs with 330. It's the second most over that span. So the year that Josh Jacobs popped off was because volume. People forget, Josh Jacobs was not a starter in college. Yes, he played for Alabama. There's a lot of great players there, so he probably sat behind some good players, whatever. He wasn't the starter in college. Period. End of sentence. If you're not good enough to start in college, you probably aren't as what you're hyped up to be in the NFL, in my opinion. There's like 100 D1 schools. If none of them wanted you to start, that's a problem for me. Yeah, he had the great season as a Raider. I appreciated him that one season, but he did not look great this week. And Green Bay, quite frankly, is only going to get worse because, for those who don't know, Jordan Love's going to miss a few weeks with his injury. So, that 16 carries for 84 yards, he'll probably still get the 16 to 20 carries because they're going to have to run the ball more. But with a backup QB and not Jordan Love, I think it's going to look a lot worse as far as what the actual gains are.
So I have a couple thoughts real quick before we get into the topic I want to discuss. I would just like to say that, and you guys could piggyback off it, I don't really think Caleb's going to be a problem going forward. I don't think Jaden will be a problem going forward. And who's the third rookie he said? Bo Nix. I don't actually think they're going to be that bad going forward in fantasy. This might be an actual week 1 overreaction to Caleb, Jaden, and Nix. I don't think Caleb and Nix could be any worse than they were week 1. I mean, I don't know if that's a positive moment or not. Kirk Cousins, I love to hate on him. First game back from Achilles, actually kind of impressed me, and I even texted the guys, like, I'm not even necessarily trying to hate on Cousins anymore, because I kind of like his wife a lot, and I kind of like Cousins a lot, and it's like, I don't know, I just hate him because I had him in fantasy a couple years, and he did bad for my team. And then, like... Did you say you like his wife? Dude, his wife is amazing in the shows. Dude, she picks out his outfits. She's like... Half the people probably wouldn't even like Cousins that much if it wasn't for his wife.
I mean, I watch the shows. She's a smoke. Dakota and I both agreed that, like, she is a daddy.
I started liking Cousins a little bit. You know how much I hate him just because of his wife.
when she wore that hat to that Commanders game and the quarterback show.
She picked out all his outfits too. How amazing is that? I wouldn't have to do anything. Just grab my outfit.
I was about to go throw 4 picks on prime time.
Hey guys, do you want to start talking about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce next, or can we get back to football?
All right, so go to the wide receiver page, Alex, and I have a question. Out of the top 1, 2,
Hold on,
3,
real quick before your question though. I didn't need to call you out. You pointed out how you had the number 1 fantasy quarterback. You're aware that you don't because Baker Playmaker plays for the Spark Plugs, and he outscored Josh Allen. But anyway, okay. Yeah, I got wide receiver stats pulled up.
Was 3 points behind Baker, and that's even really funny because you guys know how I feel about Baker. But I've turned around on Baker. I think he's actually solid in Tampa. Something happened to him. It just took him 6 years to develop. But all right, wide receiver page. Count out the top all the way down to maybe Justin Jefferson or Nico Collins or even Ashton Doolin. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, Randy. So just go as far as you want. Top 24, top 12, top 16. How many of those wide receivers do you think stay there by the end of it? It's so fascinating for me to look at this wide receiver list. Reed, Williams, Worthy, Pierce, even Cup up there, like Diggs, Godwin, Reed, Sheed, like Doolin. How many of these guys are even drafted? Most of these guys are 4th, 3rd round. Cooks, Waddle, like Brian Thomas Jr. Where are these? This is just week 1, or how many of these guys are going to stay in the top 12 to 16?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think so. Of the ones you talked about, it's like we're obviously not talking about the Tyreek Hills and the Mike Evans of the world because we know they're going to be top 10 players, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So if we're talking about the other guys, I think people who I think are unexpected. I think Jameson Williams might stay there. I think
Really?
for whatever reason, the Lions are just good now. I don't know how it happened. Somehow they traded Matt Stafford for Jared Goff, which is a downgrade by any metric you measure, and got better. I don't know how, but good for the Lions. They're fun to watch. Amon-Ra St. Brown had like 2 catches for 4 yards week 1. And he's supposed to be the guy that gets all the targets. And where did all those targets go? They went to Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams last year was rookie. He missed a few games in the beginning of the season. I think he's got more of a rapport with the quarterback now. He's taken that step up in his sophomore year. So I don't know that he's going to be like the top 2, which is what he is right now. But I mean, when you look at the stat line, he had 9 targets. That's a good target number. He caught 5 of them. That's not the greatest catch rate, but considering at least one of those is going to be a bomb every time, I think Jameson Williams has a real shot of staying there. Kupp, I think, is back to being Cooper Kupp. I think last year Puka Nacua was all the rage. I think this year he's being way overlooked. Kupp had 21 targets, guys, in week 1. I don't think that's going away. Stafford has his guy and he throws to him. Last year when Kupp was out for the first part of the year, he found a new guy in Puka, and maybe they'll split a little bit. But clearly, when both guys were on the
21
field,
targets. Yeah.
21 targets. Like that's Matthew Stafford's guy. That's his home. So, some of the others that you talked about, I do think are going to fall off. Guys like Worthy and Doolin and Shaheed, all 3 of those guys, their points came on long touchdown passes. And home run balls are great, but they're not going to happen every week, right? Like Tyreek Hill had a home run ball as well, but that's what he does. I don't know that those guys are going to do that every single week. I mean, Shaheed, his quarterback's, Derek Carr. Like, that's not going to happen every week.
Isn't that what Pierce and Shaheed's role is? To be the long ball guy?
Right, but you're not going to catch one every single week is what I'm saying,
Sure.
right? So, like, even if you catch one every other week, you're still not going to stay up here. Shaheed had 13 fantasy points. Well, if you take away a 40-yard touchdown, he had 3 fantasy points, right? So,
Sure.
if he gets 3-13, 3-13, 3-13 the entire season, he's not going to be a top guy. Xavier Worthy had those 2 long touchdowns. One of them wasn't a blown coverage, right? Or excuse me, he had that long touchdown. It was a blown coverage. So potentially, only because Chris Godwin's issue has been he's always been hurt, right? Chris Godwin is always injured, but whenever he's not injured, he's really good. Like, Godwin's a pretty good wide receiver. The Bucs have always had good talent. There's a reason that the Bucs have made so many mediocre to bad QBs look good, right? Like Jameis Winston, right? Like, Jameis Winston wasn't a good player, but he put up amazing fantasy stats because he was throwing to Godwin and Evans, right? Well, now Baker's getting to throw to Godwin and Evans. Now, Godwin caught all 8 of his targets. That's not realistic. That's going to come down, so it'll be more like 6 for 60 instead of 8 for 80. He's not always going to have a touchdown. So, no, I don't think he'll stay up here in the top 10, but I do think he could definitely has potential to be a top 24 by the end of the season. What about you guys?
Okay, so don't overreact on Williams. Don't overreact on Godwin. Now let's try the flip side. What about Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr.? Is that don't overreact on those 2 players as well, or that's we should be reacting? You know what I'm saying? It's like, so you're saying Williams and Godwin are going to be closer to the top, so it's like okay to like think that way. But what about Neighbors and Harrison? Are they just going to be bad this year?
I don't think there's a world where either one of them's bad. I think truthfully, if one has the potential to rebound, I think it's Marvin Harrison. I think Neighbors, we saw this week what we're going to see a lot, and I don't think it's any reflection on Neighbors. I think it's a reflection on Daniel Jones.
Okay, is there any chance Drew Lock changes Neighbors' fantasy value?
I think they're no, and the reason I say no is they're rookies on bad teams, right? Okay. So when you're a rookie, you're already fighting an uphill battle, right? You're having to learn the ropes of the NFL. You're having to adjust to the speed of things, learn the new playbook, and you have to build a rapport with your new quarterback. So a quarterback change for Neighbors isn't going to help him build a rapport with anyone, because like any steps he makes with Daniel Jones to try to get those timing routes down, you now have to try to do with another guy. So do I think they are as bad of players as they were in week 1? No, but do I think that they're going to bounce back and be super high? I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute, but Vinny and I both talked about how we were not high on Harrison, which is why we asked Vinny about why he drafted Harrison where he did, because neither of us was high on him as a player. Not because of his talent, but because of he's a rookie, where he's going, where he's being drafted, etc., etc., etc.
I do think that Marvin Harrison is tied to a better system with a better quarterback. Has the potential to rebound a little bit. But, yeah, let's be honest. It's not looking good. He was on the field for 90% of the snaps, so he's out there. But Trey McBride and Greg Dortch getting all the targets
all of them.
is concerning.
I think I mentioned
all of them.
Yeah, exactly. I think I remember mentioning Dortch and Murray, and like one of those had to be regressed. But okay, that's interesting. So Godwin and Williams, I guess I'm going to agree with everything Alex has actually said. I just maybe the interesting thing to me is okay. To go back to the NFL draft, the 26th pick is about to happen. It's the Bills. Okay, the Bills pick up a phone call, and it's the Chiefs, and the Chiefs say, "Hey, Bills, you want to trade back 5 spots to the 31, and we'll give you a 3rd and a 4th rounder." And the Bills go, "Yeah, that sounds amazing." So the Bills go back to 31, and the Chiefs go up to 26. They draft Xavier Worthy, and then 5 picks later, the Bills go Keon Coleman. So, like, my question is Xavier Worthy really that good and could be a potentially great wide receiver going in the future? I'm not sure. Or is he just a product of the Chiefs? Or is he, you know what I'm trying to say? Is like, the reason I tell that story is if the Bills didn't make that trade, do the Bills take Xavier Worthy at 26 and had to take Coleman later because the Chiefs literally traded up and took him? And guess what the Chiefs did with Mahomes 8 years ago? They had Alex Smith, who was second in the league in MVP voting, and they traded up to get ahead of the Saints because they knew Sean Payton was taking Mahomes. So they traded up to like the 12th pick and got Patrick Mahomes. They just traded up from the Bills and got Xavier Worthy. And it's like, I don't know if I'm reading too much into it or not, but Xavier Worthy in my head is like this dude's going to be really good for many years. Like, I don't know if I'm just overreacting week 1, but I would just throw Xavier Worthy and then agree with everything Alex said 100%.
So I think 100% that is a week 1 overreaction, and I'm going to tell you why.
Yeah, go ahead, Vince.
Xavier Worthy was on the field for about 60% of the snaps. He has 63% snap share. He had 3 total touches, 2 touchdowns, and he only had 3 targets. So he had 2 catches of 3 targets. One of those was a long bomb. And if anybody saw the long bomb, it was definitely a busted coverage. He was wide open, had nobody within him. And then he had the end around for 20 yards and a touchdown. So he touched the ball 3 times, had 2 touchdowns. We're making a big deal about it.
They're going to give him runs. Yeah. That's what I'm nervous about.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Yeah, so I agree with you. Like it's not what you do, but it's how you do it, right? One of them was a run at the goal line. How many times is he going to get a run at the goal line, realistically? Like, it's not usually going to be him. It's usually going to be the running back or some other trickeration. The Chiefs love to run little trick plays. You're not going to see that wrinkle a lot where Worthy gets a running play at the goal line. The other one, like Vinny said, if you watch the play, it is a completely busted coverage. The corner thinks he has safety help over the top. He does not. Worthy takes literally 3 steps, and he's wide open. I could have run that route and been open. Now, he would have ran me down after, but I would have been wide open for a couple seconds there for Mahomes to hit me with a pass. So it's really hard to give him credit for that, and if you take those 2 plays away, what does he have? Nothing. I'm not saying he's going to be bad, but I do think it's a pretty big overreaction. But before we go too much more into this, Mitch, though, we did talk about, I want to try to give ourselves some pats on the back and some roast based on our takes from week 1. Okay. So, because I don't want to have this podcast take forever, right? So let's go to that. Does anyone have any hot takes, or not hot takes, but just opinions from our week 1 show on the draft results that we went over that you want to give yourself a pat on the back about? I know, Mitch, you have one in round 1. If you want to go ahead and say it.
Well, I think
my take on Saquon Barkley. I thought he was going to be RB1, and obviously the 3 touchdowns just proved that I was right.
Well, you people say you can't win or lose your league in the first round, but I definitely won my first game in the first round this week, so I'll just leave it at that. I don't get 34 points from Barkley. I don't beat Chris. Chris is catching me because of Moody right now. Moody's got like 24 fantasy points.
I know if Chris had a running back tonight, he might have won. Here, I'll show that.
6 field goals, 24 points.
Hold on, let me go to that before I go back to what I was going to say. Yeah, so if we go to the game here, I mean, Chris is down by 29, which seems like a lot, but it's like he's down by 29 when Christian McCaffrey didn't play.
Exactly. I got nothing from no one. So if I don't take Barkley and I take anyone else in that spot, how many people, like Amon Royal St. Brown got Matt 1 point. And Pacheco got him 15. Thank you for leaving me 34-point Josh Allen. But that was great. Like Jahmyr Gibbs got Miles. Like Travis Etienne, they didn't do bad. Justin Jefferson didn't do bad. Derrick Henry didn't do bad. But you guys all passed on Josh Wilson. So I'm gonna pat myself on that one again. But the other thing I will pat on Benny massively. I wanted to be serious here. My big board had David Montgomery, but Benny went David Montgomery so early, and I got stuck with DJ Moore. And this might be my the bane, because now Gus Edwards is being taken over by Dobbins. Like Montgomery would have solidified my team, and so I want to pat Benny on the back for willing to go round 4 David Montgomery. That's a huge pick and a great pick. No one does that stuff. David Montgomery's ADP. Oh, I could get him later, and I could get someone else. You know, no one's willing to go 2 rounds ahead of an ADP to grab a good player. It takes a really good fantasy man. All right, what else?
All right, well, you two have gotten pats on the back, so let me give myself a pat on the back real here. I'm going to give myself, and it kind of ties into what you just said, myself a pat on the back for saying Caleb Williams sucks. I told you that I didn't think DJ Moore was going to be good this year because I thought Caleb Williams sucked, and sure enough, Caleb Williams' first game as a pro, not only did he throw for less than 100 yards, he completed less than 50% of your passes. And if you've ever watched a game with a rookie QB, what do? You show screens and short routes to try to make them feel comfortable, get them some completions early. Well, they couldn't do that with him because he's that bad. He only completed 14 passes, less than 100 yards, and that's with those 2 amazing receivers, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, and even a safety blanket like Cole Kmet. He still couldn't complete passes. This guy blows, and I'm right on that. I'm patting myself on the back because I think he's going to blow all season.
I would like to pat Cameron on the back for what was it? Oh my God, what was it? Sorry, Jaden Reed and what was this other late pick? Tony Pollard. Sorry about that. Tony Pollard and Jaden Reed might have solidified Cameron's chances this year. And then Miles going Jaden Daniels in the 9th round, locking him up early. I like that too.
I don't think Cameron's ever going to start Tony Pollard with Mixon and Hall, but
sure.
I want to piggyback off of Alex's props about the Caleb Williams take, because when I was watching him take the victory knee and celebrate after 93 passing yards and a less than 50% completion percentage, I looked at Caleb Williams as the poster child for participation trophies. And
so you think he should be in your division, is what you're saying? You think he would be in your division if you were in the DoD?
He very much so warrants a spot on Adam Sparks' roster if we're talking about mediocrity.
I mean, ironically, Adam Sparks is going to beat Cameron Dunphy and his Breece Hall, Joe Mixon, Tony Pollard lineup.
Yeah, Adam's got a solid team. I'm now repeating myself again, sorry guys, but maybe for anyone else listening, I think Nolan and Luis have very good dark horse teams. The only reason I would give Luis the edge of the best dark horse team in the league this year is because Nolan's team has got to survive the whole season with some of his players and Cup Henry and Love now hurt others. But I think Luis is going to be someone to watch out for. And yeah, if Caleb Williams isn't playing well, Sylvie's team, she'll just pick up, she'll just make a trade or something.
Yeah, speaking of my dad's team, he loses Jordan Love, which would be a big blow.
I don't really. I mean, I'm glad that Mitch gave me some props on David Montgomery because I don't really feel like I had a lot of props going for me on the last week's episode. And looking at my fantasy team, I don't know how I'm the second highest scorer this week with Zamir White and Marvin Harrison Jr. in my starting lineup. That is. I mean, Zamir was so bad that I want to replace him with a running back from my bench, and I'm looking at Jalen Warren and Ray Davis. So I'm not too sure what's going to happen this year, if we're being completely honest.
Just, if I can ask you a hypothetical before the season, or even now, like, thinking of this group, Kenneth Walker, Rashard White, David Montgomery, and, what am I missing? One more. Connor and Aaron Jones. Out of those guys I named, who would you take?
I'm going to go with,
Walker,
personally,
Rashard White, Montgomery, and Jones
So I'm gonna answer this. I'm gonna answer this as if I don't know the results of week 1, because obviously the results of week 1 changed my opinion. I would have picked James Conner. I was pretty high on him coming into the season based on how he played last year. Now, obviously, the big risk is with him is he's not going to stay healthy. So I would have known I would have needed to pick up someone else for the weeks he's not healthy. But as a general rule, on weeks where James Conner plays, he's the top 10 fantasy running back. So of those guys, I would have taken the upside of Conner, like in a vacuum. Now, obviously, the way my draft went with me going wide receiver round 1, I would not have gone Conner probably because I needed something that's more reliable. But in a vacuum, if I'm just like pick from one of those guys before the season starts, I would go with Conner.
Right, so I'm just trying to, and then you can answer this. I'm just trying to look at groups, and basically what I'm trying to say is Matt was, Professor Chaos was proposed with a possible task of picking amongst that group, and it looks like he got the correct one, Kenneth Walker, in my opinion. And so it's like those type of group pickings, and like us in the wide receivers in round 3, or when the QBs went round 5 finally. It's insane. Whoever picks first in that group is always taking the most risk, and it's like him going Kenneth Walker after everything. I'll give Matt a pat on the back for that.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
I personally am going to tie myself to a better offense. I think the Bucs have a better offense. I think from an efficiency standpoint, Rachaad White is not the best, but he gets a lot of volume. He gets a lot of goal line work. He gets a lot of passes out of the backfield. He's just a high volume back, and that usually bodes well for fantasy. I don't think Seattle's a very good offense. I don't think they have a good offensive line. And speaking of injury prone, Kenneth Walker is a fairly injury prone running back. I think he actually left. I think he's questionable for week 1. They actually think Charbonnet might start next week. So
right, but I mean, I'm just saying if he's healthy. So
yeah, I mean that's the risk with all these picks, right? So like Matt had the risk of Kenneth Walker because he might get injured, right? Like he's got an injury risk. Right. Rachaad White might lose his job to the rookie. The rookie did outrush him in week 1. For those who don't know, Tampa Bay did draft a rookie running back. He outrushed Rachaad White in week 1. He's on my roster. Woohoo! Sorry, Vinny, but I hope or not. Sorry, Vinny. Sorry, Dad. I hope Rachaad White loses the job. Let's see who's next. David Montgomery. Again, he splits with Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So like, yes, he looked like a horse for sure. And like I said, I'm big on Detroit this year, but he splits. That there's a risk there. Just going on to the next running back taken.
Connor Jones Harris.
I mean, the Miami backfield just looked atrocious, right? Like I think A-Chain led the way with like 6 carries or something. Like it was bad. Like no one got the ball. But yeah, that was a big risk. Again, the risk with Connor is, does he stay healthy? He was healthy week 1 and he won. And then Aaron Jones, which you know is who I picked up here, and Aaron Jones played great week 1, and hopefully, look, as much as I want Darnold to fall back to earth, if he stays up there, it really helps my Aaron Jones pick. So I'm really torn on this, Mitch. I'm torn on this one, to be honest with you.
It helps Nolan have a great year too, almost like an unbeatable team if they're healthy.
Look, if I win a chip because Aaron Jones pops off because Sam Darnold is a Pro Bowler, I'll gladly take that pie to the face.
Yeah,
but the worst case scenario for me is if somehow Darnold does well but Jones doesn't, so I get pied in the face and lose. That's the disaster scenario for the Sharks.
Yeah. I just it's hard to pick in those groups, and it's like it seems like he got the right one though. Maybe, but Rachaad White is a great case, but yeah. So I mean, I'm happy. I hope I can get some more points from other players, but it's going to be interesting this year because there's a lot more teams I feel like that have the potential to score 85 a week, as opposed to usually after week 1 or 2 I've got it kind of figured out. I'm like, oh no, it's going to be me versus a couple of the teams. Yeah, but this year it seems like they're spread out. I don't know. Maybe it's just the drafting, or it's like Nolan and Luis having good teams, or I don't know.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Mitch, because some people were asked like, hey, I thought we were gonna get a team by team breakdown. We didn't do that last week because we were covering draft picks, and to be honest, last week we were kind of rushed. It was the opening day of the NFL, and we started late. Tonight, some of us can't even watch the game because DirecTV and Disney don't have an agreement. So we just said, F it, we're recording it. So let's go through and do a team-by-team breakdown real quick. We've got about 15 minutes left, so we can't spend like a ton of time on each team. But just let's talk about, give your opinion of both. What did you think of this team before the season? And now that you've seen week 1, does it change your opinion? Now, I'm not saying to overreact like we've been overreacting to things, but like, was there any legitimate concerns you see for the team, after week 1? So anyway, let's start we're just gonna go left to right on my by division, and on my screen it's my division first. So we're just gonna start with if you just want to go the game logs, guys, you can follow along the Pressure Chaos versus the Sharks matchup, which again I won. I want to point that out. Got the dub. But yeah, let's start with Matt's team, Professor Chaos. What did you guys think of his team before week 1 and after week 1? Has your opinion changed?
Oh yeah, well, Matt's team is going to come down to Anthony Richardson, and because before week 1, no one was confident, and Matt went him round 4 ahead of the QB run, which happened round 5. So he made sure he got Richardson ahead of everyone, and so that's a pick to where it's like you're going to live and die by Richardson. Because if he doesn't have Richardson, look at his team right now. He doesn't have 30 points. He's kicking 10. Brock Purdy's not going to help him out. Mon St. Brown is not going to get 1 point a week, but he needs the points from his QB, in my opinion. He doesn't have Christian McCaffrey this year. So I know he went St. Brown and Pacheco in the first 2, but how much scarier would his team be if he had Josh Allen and Pacheco or St. Brown and Josh Allen? Just throwing it out there. So Matt's team is scary because it looks like Richardson's could do well. Your team is the classic case.
Well, hold on. Let us talk about Matt's team before you start blasting me. So Matt's team, coming out of the draft, I was actually pretty afraid of Matt's team other than his wide receiver 2. I didn't think he had a wide receiver 2, but I liked both of his running backs, liked his quarterback, liked his tight end as much as you can. Most tight ends are kind of garbage at this point, which is kind of sad. We used to have a lot more quality tight ends. Hopefully it gets better, but tight end play this week was pretty weak. Anyway, kicker, good defense, what have you. The only real hole I saw was the wide receiver 2. Now, I know he has T. Higgins on the bench, who didn't play, so maybe that's who he wanted to slot in instead of Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's a wide receiver 3 on his team. But
he just picked up in Jigba.
Yeah, right. So yeah, exactly. But after seeing how poor the Bengals played week 1, it's like the Bengals aren't playing well and Higgins is hurt. So to me, that was the big glaring weakness on his team coming out of the draft. Other than that, I really liked his team. Obviously, after week 1, it's kind of exactly what I thought, with the exception of St. Brown. Like the St. Brown 1 point line, I think that's a fluke. So assuming that is a fluke, then yeah, I still think he's got a good team. Other than I think he's got a pretty glaring hole at wide receiver 2. Even if Richardson doesn't work out, I would say he has Purdy, but Purdy had a horrendous night as well. So, yeah, considering the Niners scored 32 points and he didn't throw a touchdown. Not horrendous. He didn't play poor, but just fantasy-wise, he didn't do well because, they ran all over the Jets. He didn't need to pass. Anyway.
Four teams make the playoffs. So I'm not just going to say this for every team. But with a healthy Richardson, this is a playoff.
Okay. Vinny, any other comments on that? If not, we'll move on because I got to go quick.
I actually have similar thoughts. I think his team comes down to Amon-Ra and Richardson, but I think differently. I think Amon-Ra is a little overrated for the format that we play without a PPR. I don't think he's a big play guy. He's a target guy and a volume guy. And I think Richardson's going to be a fantasy stud. So, yeah, I think he has potential, but...
all right, let's move on to the current best team in the league and break down the Sharks. Go ahead.
This is the classic core team with no QB. Good luck.
So you don't think Dak Prescott's a QB, huh?
I actually was going to do Dak and Richardson as that was my plan this year, to do Dak and Richardson. But Josh Allen fell. So I'm not that against Dak, but I just don't know what their plan is for him. They just paid him all that money. I would rather have Dak working for his contract, if that makes sense. I wanted him to play this year, trying to earn his contract. If Dak
Number 2 fantasy QB last year, boys. Dak Prescott.
Yeah, he's really
ahead of your boy Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, etc., etc.
The only other thing is, I stayed away from Aaron Jones in all leagues because I heard reports that he was splitting with what's his name? What's his name? Yeah, thank you. So if Aaron Jones is and the Vikings are this good with Darnold, I mean, you might have the 2 best running back duos, and that's saying a lot with Cook and Jones. That's saying a lot. So, Lamb's obviously going to be a lot better. So, once again, this has just got a great core. I love everything about it, and then I look at my QB and I'm like, pass.
So let me ask you this way: if Dak Prescott doesn't repeat last year, because last year obviously QB2 was pretty amazing, but if he's a top 6 fantasy QB this year, you don't think this is a great team?
If he's a top 6 fantasy QB, unfortunately, the 2 playoff spots might come out of your division, even though I think my division's pretty stacked this year. But I don't know if Chris can survive himself because he has some bad luck drafting.
I mean, 2 of the last 3 years, the teams you're looking at on the screen right now are the teams that made the playoffs and made the Super Bowl. So
Luis too, and that's gonna be 3 people from your division. This always happens. It's like you have such a good team, but if your QB cannot put up 20 points a week or 18 minimum, you just don't have a chance. So as much as I'm Googling over your core, trust me, Jones, Cook, Evans, Lamb, Fitz, that's amazing. That's great. Like, you can't get much better than that. But I just don't know how many wins it'll translate to.
But again, in your head though, I need you to replace Cousins with Dak because I think you're blinded by Cousins. Like, keep in mind, Dak Prescott, like, yeah, he only had 13 week 1, but he's the number 2 fantasy QB last year. But anyway, I get it. You think you're not sold on Dak? That's fine. Vinny, any comments before we move on? Because we got to move on. Any comments, Vin?
I think that you're going to have as many losses as you have lower leg injuries looking at this roster. So
just 1? Nice. I just got the 1.
So
look, keep in mind, my lower leg injury has just been the same injury for the last 6 years, right? It's not like it's a new injury. So anyway, moving on to Revis and Butthead, Coach Luis Fernandez. What do we think of his team, boys? We touched on this earlier. Mitch, you thought he was a dark horse, so I kind of already got your opinion, but Vinny, what do you see here? Anything you want to talk about?
I know that Mitch has already kind of talked about it. I think it's a good team. I have a hot take that I completely forgot about is that Tank Bigsby looked better than Travis Etienne this week.
Yeah, actually, I didn't take that take because I thought you were going to do that one. But Tank Bigsby outrushed Travis Etienne, and the reason that Tank Bigsby got no carries last year was because in his first 2 games he fumbled. And what did Etienne do? He fumbled the ball at the back of the end zone, causing a touchback instead of a touchdown, costing the Jags the game. That's the exact reason that Bigsby didn't get any carries as a rookie. So watch out. If Bigsby's learned to protect the ball and Etienne does stuff like that, there's a chance that we see a full-on split in Jacksonville.
We're also assuming that Chubb comes back and doesn't split with Ford. And, like, it could be week 8, and he could just be starting Ford instead of Etienne. But, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's good for now. I think there's a lot of flag.
I also think there's a lot of brand named equity with his wide receivers, like on paper. Oh, Devontae Adams and Jamar Chase, that's sick. I mean, but it's like Devontae Adams doesn't have a quarterback, and Joe Burrow hadn't played well in 2 years. So we'll see, right? Anyway, moving on. I know you thought that this is one of your favorite teams, Mitch. You had a lot of nice things to say about us. Why don't you go first on the serial killers?
I don't know. I'm just bitter she beat me for a Super Bowl, so, I'm loving the hate on her. But Nakua getting injured was like her shining, Nakua was going to beat her. And then Bijan's just being Bijan, and Jacobs did not look good, and neither did Caleb. So this could be a massive week 1 overaction, and Sylvie has a great team. Chiefs are always going to be a good defense for her. Nakua needs to be healthy. Pickens is just going to be 8 points a week. Bijan's going to be 8 to 10 a week. But Jacobs and Williams, if this is an overreaction by me, then sure, I get it. But if Jacobs and Williams are that bad, I just don't know I don't know what she's been able to do.
I actually don't think her team is as bad as it looks. I think she was really unlucky. If you look at this roster, she didn't have a touchdown. And that's fantasy football, right? So Jacobs 10 fantasy points with no TDs. Bijan 10 fantasy points, no TDs. Pickens 8 fantasy points, no TDs. That's really unlucky. And then Nakua getting hurt, so he only had 3 points. But if he plays the entire game, there's a strong chance that he's at 8 to 10 fantasy points with no TDs. It's if she just picks up 1 to 2 touchdowns between her core of players, and obviously Ingram had the most receptions among tight ends last season, had no fantasy points. So I think she was a little unlucky week 1. I mean, I think we're all in agreement. We weren't huge on Pickens. I don't think any of us were coming out of the draft, but he had a good week 1, so we'll see. But I think she's going to need to find some touchdowns somewhere. But her biggest glare, which is what you pointed out to me, is I think she needs a quarterback. I do think Caleb Williams sucks. I understand why she took him. He's a USC guy. There's plenty of quarterbacks out there. I'm sure after week 1, people are going to drop their backup QBs, so she'll be able to pick somebody up that's better than Caleb Williams. But I think that's the main hole in her roster. I think the rest of her players, I'm higher on Robinson than a lot of people are. I think he's going to get touchdowns most weeks. Yeah, just because he's their goal line guy. Eckler's not going to be that guy. So I think this team is better than it looked week 1, but I do think she needs a quarterback. I think that's the glaring weakness right now.
How are you going to let Morris come into your hometown in Atlanta and have Najee outperform Bijan after they ran him out of town. It's so wild.
Also worth noting, Tank Bigsby on this roster. You know what I mean? This could turn into something. You'll see 73 yards here for Tank.
This could be
Back up here, Etienne, 44 yards and a fumble. So.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to hate on her because you're not supposed to do this, but you know you played you in the first round of the playoffs, and then you add up your score the second round. She denied me my second highest playoff score ever. If I would have beaten her in round one, I got to play Vinny in the finals. I would have dropped my second. I beat Matt 168 to like 80 something. That was the highest. I would have beaten Vinny 154 to I think Vinny scored 92 or whatever. And she denied my happiness and my love to beat Vinny in a Super Bowl finals because she beat me in the round before. So this is probably just coming from a lot of hate. So don't listen to me, Sylvie.
All right. Moving on. So now we're going to move on to the Flying Penguins and the Yak of Lamb. We'll start with Brake's team on the left. Notable fantasy juggernaut, the Flying Penguins, always in contention. Perennial playoff team. What do you guys think about the Penguins this season?
I think that none of what you just said is true. And I'm not going to sit here and project the Flying Penguins to be good because they haven't in 21 years. I'm not even going to look at the players.
I am going to look at the players, though. Lamar Jackson, great. James Conner, you guys know, I think he's a good player. I think he might get hurt at some point, but as long as he plays, he's going to be good. Taylor had a bad game, but I think he'll be better. I think Richardson just kind of stole the show. Ayuk, I think, is good, but he held out. It's going to take some time to get in the swing. He did drop a touchdown pass today. So, if he doesn't drop that pass, this 2 goes up to 10. Nico Collins is solid. Njoku, I think all the tight ends have been pretty poor. My biggest concern with Njoku is he was great last year with Flacco. He hasn't really played with Deshaun Watson. 44 yards in the first game. That's pretty good for a tight end. Because, if you guys have been looking, guys like Mark Andrews, 1 point. Tight ends did not do well. Young Hoku really upset Mitch when Brake made this pick because he really wanted to take him. Or Young Wei. Yeah, obviously, most kickers this week scored 20. Brake got 4. Bills D is a good defense. So I actually think this team is a pretty good team, assuming Ayuk gets back to form. My only concern would be his bench, other than, Dobbins looked fantastic. So Dobbins doesn't get to play the Raiders every week, but if he looks anything like this, then he can slot him in, and I think the team's really damn good when Connor gets hurt. But go ahead.
I don't want to get sidetracked, but do you think who's the best of this group? Ayuk, James Williams, Metcalf, or DJ Moore? Out of those 4, rank those real quick.
So sorry, is Ayuk, Williams, Moore, and Metcalf?
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk, Jameson Williams, Moore, and Metcalf.
Before week 1, I would have said Ayuk 1.
Yep.
After week 1, I might put Williams at 1.
Okay, because I want to offer Adam.
That is such a hot take.
I wanted to offer Adam Metcalf or Moore for Dobbins, but I just wanted to help his team. So in order for that to help his team, you would have to consider Metcalf or Moore better than Ayuk or Williams. Do you get what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, but you probably shouldn't ask me that after I told you I was already high on Williams after week 1. Because if I'm Brake, I would be starting Williams and Collins next week, right? So
then he does. I don't want to ruin Adam's team. I want to make him better.
the real question for Brake is next week. Does Dobbins take one of these guys' spots, right?
No,
Connor or Taylor.
I don't think you can count on that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's really hard not to look at this because Brake might look at this and go, oh, this guy's better, right? We look at this and go, he played better week 1, but is that going to happen? Anyway.
And let me specify real quick. I am only going to Dobbins because I invested in Edwards. It has nothing to do with Dobbins being a great player or whatever. It's just he might be the running back 1. I invested in Edwards. I need to have the number 1 running back charge.
Yeah, full disclosure, I did know the leagues too. You shouldn't listen to coaches, but the coach came out and talked up how Edwards is going to be a bell cow, blah, 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 blah. And obviously that's not what happened week 1. Anyway, moving on to the Yak of Lamb. Oh, sorry, Vinny, go ahead. You got something?
Yeah. Did Mitch just backdoor trade advice us right there, and then we gave it to him? That's a low blow right there.
No, no. Oh, maybe you weren't here. He was talking about that earlier. You weren't here yet, Vinny, maybe. Mitch was talking about that to me earlier about making the trade, and I told him, I didn't give him, a full opinion on it. We were just kind of, talking about it and got sidetracked. But since he's asking me on the podcast in front of everyone, I have to give my honest opinion.
After we trade to Adam, he's going to ask people, and other people are going to have their opinions. Might as well just do it.
I think Brake's just anti-trade and would veto any trades anyway. I think, keep in mind, you're talking about Brake. Brake would veto any trade, even a trade offered to him. So,
okay.
But yes, I still think Ayuk is going to be good this year. Again, you can't hold out the entire summer and then come in week 1 and expect to play well. He dropped the touchdown pass in a game they didn't really need. but if he catches that, he gets 10 points too. I just think Jameson Williams looked so good week 1.
All right, so going to Cameron, I just want to say Debo and Mixon look amazing, but I don't think it's a good enough team overall. I want to concede my time with Cameron. I just want to go back to Adam real quick. I won a Super Bowl in 2018, 2019 when I had Lamar Jackson and a bunch of scrubs. So if Lamar Jackson, I did have Alvin Kamara, who is my fantasy running back. So if Jonathan Taylor can live up to at least being a top 3 or 4 running back, which I think he can, when you have a top 4 or 5 running back in this league, plus Lamar, you always give yourself a chance to win in this league. All right, I'm done. Go on.
Yeah, I like his team. All right, go ahead.
I'll start here just because I know I bagged Adam. I'm just looking at these two teams, I'm pretty pissed off. They're both in my division. I like both of them a lot, actually. I'm looking at a lot of star power here. The two of the highest scorers in this entire group are Joe Mixon and James Conner, which are their RB2s. Like, that's ridiculous. You can't expect that same performance out of guys like Mark Andrews, Amari Cooper, Joe Burrow, Brandon Ayuk. They're going to pick it up. They're going to be flirting. These rosters are going to be scoring 90 points every week.
These are two of their lowest weeks. I agree.
Yeah, I think these are two of their lowest weeks, and we all know in this league, if you're scoring between 85 to 90 pretty consistently, you're going to win a lot of games.
You're going to win a lot. Yeah.
See,
and I think these two rosters are going to do it.
So I'm going to go the other way on that one. So just because I'm not high on Amari Ferrari here, and the reason for that is the same argument I gave on some other Browns players. All of his stats and numbers were with Joe Flacco. Deshaun Watson hasn't been a good quarterback in the last 4 years. He got sat for most of the year, got suspended for most of the year, or an entire year, got suspended for another half a year, played a couple of games, then got hurt. This is the dude's first time playing real football in forever, and he hasn't looked good doing it, and until he does, it's hard for me to say, oh, Amari Cooper's a good player. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely looked like Mark Andrews, and unfortunately Mark Andrews didn't. Isaiah Likely seems to be Lamar's new favorite target. I don't know what happened, but Isaiah Likely got injured in the game. He got hurt, had to leave for 2 plays, came back in, and when it was time for the final play of the game, who they throw the ball in the end zone? Not Mark Andrews. They threw it to Likely. Now, yeah, his foot was out of bounds, whatever, but the point being, he's the one that got the call, not Andrews, not Zay Flowers. Likely seems to be Lamar's favorite target, and as long as that's the case, I am very concerned about Mark Andrews. I'm concerned about Amari Cooper. So while I do agree, and I'm concerned about Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow hadn't played good football 2 years either. So while I do agree, Mixon's great. I think Breece Hall is fine. I mean, I wasn't as high on him as everyone else, as we talked about last week. I think he's fine. I think Debo's a solid player. But I am very concerned about Cooper, Andrews, Burrow, which on paper seem great. But based on my personal beliefs and what I've seen week 1, I am more concerned for this roster, much more so than I am for Breaks. I think Break has one of the best teams in the league.
I think Alex, I think you're 100% right. Except for with Cameron, he can just slot in Likely and Reed. Cooper and Andrews are gone to Reed and Likely. And look at that team, man. If Burrow starts playing well, that's. I mean, I know I said I could cede my time about Cameron, but you slot Reed in for Cooper, slot Likely in for Andrews because he has Likely on his bench. Likely, if he catches that touchdown, has 24 fantasy points. And not only that, after the game, Likely was the one who did the post-game interview that they were like, "You go talk for us." Like Likely, something happened this offseason where they're like, "Yeah, it was Likely as the face of our offense." Like it was him saying like, "Oh, that's all the Chiefs had or whatever," and that quote went viral. Like, so I don't know. Like, just slot Likely in and slot Reed in, and what do you think?
I agree. I totally agree. I didn't know he had Likely on the bench. That's on me. I do agree with you on Likely swapping in, so that fixes that problem. But I don't think it fixes the wide receiver problem. So for Jalen Reed, so again, if we look at his stats, he had a 33-yard rushing TD. That's not going to happen every week for a wide receiver. He had a 70-yard touchdown. Home run balls don't happen every week, so that puts him at 68 yards. Even if you say he's going to get a home run every week, Jordan Love was his quarterback. Jordan Love is hurt. He's no longer the quarterback. He's going to have 3 to 6 weeks of a new quarterback who's not as good as Jordan Love. I think Reed's stock just took a huge hit, not because of Reed, but because of the quarterback play. His stock is going to go down. So I don't... Is he going to be better than Amari? Yeah, maybe. Like I still probably would start Reed next week over Amari Cooper. Clearly they're game planning for him if he's getting rushing attempts. So I probably would start him over Cooper next week. But I don't know that I think that solves that problem. And then it goes back to, you think my team's not great because of Dak? How can you say that his team's going to be great with Burrow based on what Burrow's done the last 2 seasons? But anyway, we got to move on.
No, I didn't think his team was great. I just think he would get. I said from the beginning, I didn't think that was. No, I do think.
Gotcha.
Then you might be right that 76 might be Cameron's low, but no, I'm not. Again, I like my QBs. I'm not big on this one. I like your team much better than Cameron's. Trust me.
All right, we gotta pick this up. I know we're gonna go a little over time here, guys. But this is what you guys wanted, so hopefully you guys are cool with this going a little over. Worst team in the league on the left by far. Garbage QB, really bad take at running back. Took the wrong Chargers running back. I mean, ugh. And he wants to trade DK Metcalf and more. The 6 points they got, he wants to flip them for the 30 points that J.K. Dobbins got. So Mitch, go ahead, break it down. Break down this roster on the left. What do you think?
First of all, that's rough. But Dobbins isn't even a starter for Adam. More Metcalf could start for. And I've probably given up way too much. That's an over one reaction. I need to sit on my team and just see how they do. But I'm extremely biased. I don't know how you guys let me have the number one QB and a top 5 running back. Every time I get a top 2
number 2
QB,
QB.
top 5
Number 2 QB.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield.
Number 2 QB.
Don't hate on Baker.
I'm not hating on Baker this year, I promise. No, I'm just saying a top 2 or 3 QB that scores that 480 mark or whatever, and a top 3 running back so I can compete in relative terms to the other guys who have those top running backs. That's me with Saquon Barkley and Aaron Rodgers, won a championship. That's me with Lamar Jackson and Alvin Kamara, won a championship. So I'm very biased right now. I like my chances because usually when I have a top 3 running back and a top 3 QB, it bodes well for me. Because other years, I have Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson who are number 1 and number 3 wide receivers, and I can't beat the top 4 teams. Christian McCaffrey just runs all over.
I mean, that's true. You wouldn't have beat me or Vinny this week, 2 of the top 4 teams, clearly. Yeah, so, but my real take on your team, obviously, Allen's fantastic. Barkley's great. Gus Edwards scares the hell out of me. I was thinking that Gus Edwards would be the guy for the first half of the season before ceding the job to someone. So the fact that he's already lost the job week 1 is a big concern. You do have Moss on your bench, though, so I think you slot him in there. And you just need the Bengals to be better. But, yeah, I was mad that I took Singletary over Moss, and Moss did outplay him, although not by a lot. So,
do I have a top 12 wide receiver, and do I have a top 24 wide receiver?
Metcalf and Moore. I mean, you got Godwin, right? So that's your top guy here on the bench.
Okay.
So I throw Godwin in there. No, I don't like your receivers. If I'm you, I'm starting Metcalf and Godwin. I'm not happy about it.
That's what I figured as much. Keon Coleman better start picking it up.
and I know. Listen, I'm going to display a little haterade. It's a little bit of a hot take. You heard my hot take about the Bills. I just don't think the Bills play the Cardinals at home every week, and so I did not really care for Allen a whole lot going into the season from a fantasy perspective. I think he's not QB1. I think he's QB 4 or 5.
Did you see how much he ran?
I mean, okay.
He's going to be QB1 by a mile.
Look, all my blasting of Mitch's team aside, he's definitely going to be a top 3 fantasy QB, I think. And even if you're right and he's QB4, Vinny, that's still great. But yeah. Anyway, to move on, yeah. But realistically, there's some holes on your roster, Mitch. Specifically, I think your wide receivers need help. Is where I think you're going to be hurting. Like you said, you're top heavy up here, right? These guys can definitely make up some difference, but I do think you're probably not going to get 4 TDs out of Allen every week, and that'll make things difficult. Like if Allen only gets 3 TDs, like right, okay, so if he gets 3 TDs, that's 28. So let's put him at 28. So you get 83 points, and McCaffrey actually plays, you lose this game.
Right. I would just need someone to do something, including the Browns D. If I start Steelers D, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Anyway. Moving on to Chris's team, this team we all loved. So I guess we should all give ourselves, roasting our picks. We all kind of loved Chris's team coming out of the draft. This looks like a trash can fire. I said during the show before that I did not think Mahomes is worth a high pick, even in a quarterback league, just because they're all about spreading the ball out and using other guys and doing trickeration. He's not usually a top flight fantasy QB. He's a top quarterback. Like if I'm building a team to win an actual NFL team, I want Mahomes. If I'm building a fantasy team, he's not one of my top few guys. Lots of issues that the Dolphins had. Now, A-Chain still had a great game, and there's still a chance for that, but you'll see these plus signs next to him a lot. There's an injury concern. There's splitting concern. There's, carries. Again, he had 10 carries for 24 yards. That's a 2.4 yard average. For those who ever played football, that's horrendous. If you ran the ball all 4 downs, you still wouldn't make a first down with a 2.4 yard average. So, little concerned about this. Now Miami maybe will pick up, but let's even if we assume he's good, like this is I think this is medium. Obviously, this is great. He didn't play. That was unfortunate. Waddle was great. London, I had a different read on London, and I hope my read comes out better for me. I'm hoping that week 1's just a fluke with Duggins and London. But yeah, anyway, I think Chris got a little unlucky this week. I do think there's also a chance that I got a wrong read on players. But yeah, I think Ferguson and London, and obviously McCaffrey will pick it up. But I'm not as high on this team as I was coming out of the draft.
The only thing I'm going to say nice to Chris, because I don't like saying nice things to Chris, is this might be the epitome of week 1 overreaction team. Like, he's got Mahomes, H.J. McCaffrey, Waddle, London, like, that team, and even Ferguson guard. But, like, that team right there is going to win you some games. It might not be as many as we thought. But, like, you got McCaffrey and Mahomes, and I understand Mahomes I agree with what you're saying, but the Ravens are supposed to be, top 3 statistical and on paper defense. Like, if that's watch like Baltimore just be so good defensively these next couple weeks, and we'll look back on it and be like, yeah, Mahomes dropped 27 on the Ravens. That's really good, and 300 yards. So it's like, this might be the epitome of week 1 reaction, but I hope with every part of my body that Chris's team is bad.
Yeah, like I said, coming out of the draft, we all really loved Chris's team. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's a bad team. I came out of the draft loving his team, but I am concerned with anytime a guy misses a game with a plus sign next to his name, how many more games is he going to miss, right? This was not an expected scratch when he missed this game. How long is McCaffrey out? And considering how well Mason played in his absence, there's a chance for hey, McCaffrey, why don't you sit out another week until you're healthy, right?
That's what I thought last year. That's why I drafted Elijah Mitchell. I did not realize they were going to run him as a one-back. Shanahan never runs a run-back. Andy Reid never runs a one-back. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, Pacheco, take all the carries. Oh, McCaffrey, take all the carries. Like, when did that happen? So, that's what I thought last year. And now it's, even more apparent. It's like the Niners are playing for, what have they been to? 4 NFC championships out of the last 5 years and 2 Super Bowls? They're playing for that. Why would you even run McCaffrey in September, October? McCaffrey in September and October shouldn't even be associated. Just let him sit out till November and then run him 30 times a game. Yeah, I thought that last year, but I guess it's this year, but whatever.
All right. Any last thoughts, Vinny, before we move on?
Just really quick. I think this is going to be one of those rebound teams. I think this is a week 1 overreaction. I'll see time later. This is just something wild. We're talking about, London this or all these players and talking about week 1 overreactions. Let's look at wide receivers that were drafted in the first 3 rounds. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1 point. CeeDee Lamb, 8 points. Let's move on to another team. Jamar Chase, 6 points. Brandon Ayuk, 2 points. Amari Cooper, 1 point. I don't know where he was drafted. Marvin Harrison Jr., 0 points. Puka Nacua, 3 points. Devontae Adams, 5 points. I mean, if we want
Jamar
to
Chase, 6 points. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
2, DJ Moore, 4. So week 1 overreaction is sitting here and calling teams out by their wide receivers right now, because those are all stud wide receivers who scored 6 points.
But I will say that I didn't call it Amon-Ra St. Brown because while it was weird that he didn't get catches, I still think he will. And Jared Goff still threw for 200-something yards and threw multiple touchdowns. Whereas guys like DJ Moore, his quarterback only threw for 96 yards. I don't see him getting more. He caught 33% of the guys' passing yards. You know what I mean? More than that. He caught 40% of the guys' passing yards. So that's not going up. London, my boy Thuggins didn't play well. No matter how good he is, if Thuggins doesn't play well, London's not going to play well. But yeah, I agree. Definitely some overreaction here, and I'm blasting Chris a little bit just because I was really worried about his team coming out of the draft. I'm less worried about it now. It just makes me feel good about myself. Same with Mitch. I think we just don't want it to be good, so I think that's part of our bias here. But let's move on. So now we're going to talk about... Oh, go ahead. Good.
What Vinny exactly said was what I was trying to say way earlier in the podcast when I brought up the topic I wanted to talk about. How many of those wide receivers are going to stay there? Because all these stud wide receivers can't get in the top 12 to 24 if there's going to be newer, Williams and all these other guys. So anyways, that's exactly what I was trying to bring up.
Another stud wide receiver here on Team Dinosaurs, Chris Olave. So who wants to take a crack at this one? Who wants to go first about the Dinos?
Oh, I love this team. I mean, I love everything about it. I think Kyler Murray will be fine, move up. Gibbs is going to hopefully take more from Montgomery. I knew Montgomery's a great pick. Kyron seems to be fine. You got the Rams starting running back in a time people used to want Todd Gurley in the McVay running back. Olave, Smith, like this team right here, I know Vinny was saying Adam and Cameron's team were going to win a lot. I think this team right here just scored its lowest of the year. I truly believe that.
Sounds like the participation trophy is back. My favorite thing about Miles' team is starting 0-1. So, but yeah, I haven't actually sat down and looked at the teams in my division, and the more I look at them, the more pissed off I am. So it just goes to show how I feel about this team and how I felt about the other two. I think Kyler's going to do much better than 15 points. I think Kyron's going to bounce back. I think Gibbs is going to bounce back. I do think this team carries risks, actually a significant amount, but that's the teams that scare me the most. So if he hits on just a couple of these, it's going to be a very, very good
What
team.
about Mason? What about Mason? That's very scary.
Yeah.
I mean, it's scary if you think Mason's going to hold that starting job and play the Jets every week, but I don't think that's going to happen. He does have a better quarterback on his bench, though. He's got Jaden Daniels on the bench. You can make that swap, and his team gets a lot better.
Right.
But, yeah, ironically, the worst player on his team if you asked me before the season started, who's the worst player on Miles' team, it's Devonta Smith, hands down. Not talent-wise, just fantasy-wise. You're on a run-first team, and you're the wide receiver, too. And ironically, he came out and had 84 receiving yards. Whereas Olave, even though his team dropped 47, only got 11 receiving yards. So weird week. Unlike Sylvie, who was very unlucky having high yardage totals and no touchdowns, Miles was very lucky in having touchdowns with low yardage totals. And then obviously Fairbairn hitting not one, not two, but 3 50-yard kicks. Obviously he lost, had a low score. But yeah, I do like this team, but I am a little concerned about the wide receivers just because before week 1, I think Smith was this weak link. And after week 1, I'm concerned that somehow the Saints scored 47 with Olave only getting 11 receiving yards.
That's wild. That's just
Especially
wild.
This is the pick that you guys took forever on. So this is the pick that took forever. I'm sure Miles has got to be kicking himself right now. Taking 3.5 minutes to make a pick and then picking a guy that got 11 receiving yards. That's rough. I feel for you, Miles.
The guy we were debating between had 24 targets and 120 yards.
Well, again, I mean, Puka did get hurt, right? So he maybe doesn't get 20, 21 or whatever it was, but yeah, he still would have had at least probably 12 to 15, which is still insane. Anyway, moving on to Vin Diesel over here, currently the second best team in the DoD. His first round pick, Jalen Hurts, did medium. Zay White, that's about as good as we're going to get out of him. Maybe you won't fumble every week. Montgomery played great. I think he still will. Harrison was a trash can fire again. That comes down to Murray not being very good. I forgot to point this out. Miles for the longest time was like us Raider fans. Don't take Raiders because you're going to get hurt both in real football and fantasy football. Miles says don't take Cardinals because you get hurt in real and fantasy. Miles is starting 2 Cardinals and Vinny's starting a Raider. What happened here, Vinny? You break this roster down. What happened?
So, I mean, if we were actually recording the draft, I did not like my Zamir White pick. It was the best running back, in my opinion, on the board at the time. I needed a running back. He was the only one that was the guaranteed starter that was still left on the board. I'm with you. I loathe Raider players. Watching the game was even more difficult to watch. Honestly, when I logged in last night and saw that I had 92 points on the board and how bad this team, in my opinion, performed, I know the Cowboys de-carried me, and I can't necessarily. I can't bank on 24 points every week, but this is a bad. I mean, let's be honest. This is a bad week for my team. I would think like Marvin Harrison 0, Jalen Hurts 3 turnovers, Zamir White 2 points. I mean, if I can just get 6 to 10 out of Zamir, I'm gonna be happy. I don't know. I honestly, it's week 1. I'm happy that I won. Am I happy with how my team played? No. I have a lot of concerns, but I'm not terrified, so that's a good sign.
I'll take it from here. The only thing I will say about your team, because I like having the number 1 QB in the league, I'll take that team and I'll work with the rest of the roster. Don't care. I'll get 9 wins in this DoD league scoring system with the number 1 QB. I don't care. So I'm just going to be extremely biased and talking about Vinny's team because he's got, in my opinion, the number 1 outright QB who's not going to be playing in Brazil opening day on some whack turf. It's going to be the old Jalen. We'll see closer. I think that's the lowest score in the Jalen easily. The thing I'm going to laugh at myself about is I looked at this team before week 1, I think Saturday night. I was like, at least if Marvin Harrison doesn't do well, he's got Terry McLaurin. I just can't. Like, I just don't understand I just don't understand. When am I going to stop liking him? When am I going to grow up? Like,
Hey, you want to make a pie bet? Mike Evans versus Terry McLaurin? I hear you like those. I'll make a bet with you that Mike Evans outplays Terry McLaurin the rest of the way.
Yeah.
I can't believe I said Saturday night, he's going to start McLaurin by week 2. It's no big deal if Harrison has a bad game.
Yeah, Mitch, I'm with you. I think what people don't know about the pie bet is that it was in a group chat, and I was also hyping up McLaurin over Evans last year.
Yeah, so the story of the original pie bet.
McLaurin's back for like 4 years, and McLaurin has let me down. I draft McLaurin in every league every year for the last 3 or 4 years.
I make pie bets the first time ever, and I lose on him.
Yeah, so the story of the original pie bet was we're in a group chat, and I was looking to make a trade. Someone was looking to deal Evans because they were out of playoff contention. I wanted to pick him up. It was about the halfway point of the season. If I didn't make the deal, I was going to be starting Terry McLaurin. But if I did make or Chris Godwin, either one, but Chris Godwin would have been like hurt at the time, so it was going to be like Terry McLaurin for a lot of it, and then keep Godwin as well for when he comes back, or make the trade for Mike Evans. Mitch and Vinny were both on McLaurin. Chris, who I consider the wide receiver guru because of his amazing double wide receiver draft strategy, for those who don't remember, that was taking QB running back. But Chris was on board with Mike Evans, and I'm a Mike Evans homer. I always have been, so I wanted him. So even though it was 2 votes to 1 against what I wanted to do, I decided to go for it. But they kept arguing it to the point that I said, you know what? Put your money where your mouth is. I proposed the pie bet. Chris and Mitch both agreed, and the rest is history. So that's how the pie bet came about. Anyway, let's try to wrap this up. Sorry, guys. It's going way longer than we intended. But yeah, I just want to... Go ahead.
I want to apologize for the stray that's about to happen here, but the fact that Alex is such a Mike Evans homer that he took Chris's singular vote over Mitch and I's vote is insane.
And he was right, too, so good job, Alex.
I'll be honest, you guys could have all 3 said Terry McLaurin. I still would have probably made the trade on Mike Evans homer, but I still want to get all the opinions, right? And it worked out for me. I did go to the Super Bowl in that league. And just like in DoD, I lost the Super Bowl last year. But
me and Vinny an absolute idiot. I think mine was more of my Baker Mayfield hate. But anyways, yeah, go on.
Yeah, yours was. But anyway, so the thing is, your team, I don't think Harrison's always going to be this bad, but I don't know that he's going to be much better. I didn't like him before the draft. I certainly don't like him now, and you do not have a backup to put in his place other than Terry McLaurin or Brian Thomas. And then White is awful, and you really have no backup for White. You need Brooks to come off of IR in a few weeks and not be terrible. That's a lot of ifs. You're going to need something to happen for you to be able to do anything. Jalen Warren does not look like he's going to be the guy anymore. Najee clearly had that job locked up. So, yeah. A couple of big holes on your roster there, Vin. Other than that, it's good, but 2 big holes.
Those holes get covered so well when you have a QB minimum have his first game of his career put up like 20 to 25 points.
Now let's talk about a team that we all came out of the draft thinking this might be one of the best teams in the draft. We all were pretty high on this team before. After week 1, has anything changed? I think Jefferson's as good as we thought he was. I think Kupp is better than we thought he was. I think Rachaad White's still just as medium as I thought he was. Derrick Henry, that's what we were going to expect him to do this year. He's going to get less touches, but he was going to get a lot of touchdowns. Jordan Love played well. Now, he is hurt. However, like we said, on the bench, he's got Baker playmaker. Now, I don't know that Baker's always going to drop 37. He's not going to play the Redskins every week. But I think Baker will be just fine until Love is healthy again. I really like this team. And Ravens D, I really like this team. The only weakness, again, is tight end. But everyone's weakness is tight end this year because right over here, Travis Kelce got 3 points. So I really like this team.
My 4th and final playoff spot. And that will be going to Nolan. This team is so scary. It's ridiculous. Even Wright can be something. Brian Robinson's going to be better than White. And then he even backs up his kicker with the top. If you look up Daniel Carlson's been top 2 or 3 kicker for 5 years in a row. And he had the wits to just bench him this week for Myers. If Nolan's playing for real, we're in trouble. This Henry, Kupp, Jefferson stay healthy for longer than 12 games. This is a playoff team, hands down, non-debatable. It's the only reason this might not be a playoff team is because Love got hurt, which is so unfortunate. But like Baker's the number one QB. I can't believe I just said that. Baker's the number one fantasy QB. So you're not slotting in anyone terrible. It's not like Sylvie having to go to the waivers and replace Caleb. And then he's got Henry Cup Jefferson. That wins you any league in our league most years, and he's got all three. Cup brought Chris to like the Super Bowl just alone. Jefferson brought me to a Super Bowl, and like Derrick Henry has brought Matt and Alex to like playoffs many times. Like, didn't Derrick Henry win with Sylvie as well? I might be wrong.
I think Jalen and it might have been, but
it was Jalen and Henry. So like, you have league winner, and then he drafted Jordan Love, White, Robinson. I mean, I don't like Komet. I drafted Komet last year. But in my opinion, the Ravens aren't going to play Kansas City every time. And the Ravens, on paper, might be the best defense. So it's like, this is the other playoff spot I'm handing out. This is a very scary team. And I'm not just saying it because it's Nolan. You know how much I love your dad. I'm actually saying this because Nolan kicked ass this year and drafted, a beast. That's a beast team. And if Jordan Love, we might have all gotten saved here. If Jordan Love was a top 3 fantasy QB, look at this team. Like, you're saying, what if Dak is like 6th or 5th or whatever? What if Jordan Love is like 4th or 5th? Like, look at this team. Oh my gosh.
So Mitch, to recap, who are your 4 playoff teams this year?
It was, well, I'm gonna get me was the 3rd one technically, but then I think it's you, Alex, and Nolan.
Me, Matt, and
but
Nolan.
That leaves one. Yeah, that leaves one out of the other division. So obviously it's wrong. I'm just was trying to get my 4 best teams.
Sure. Okay. And then Vinny, any other comments on that before we move to the last team here?
Yeah, I like Nolan's team so much that I'm going to say that if this podcast releases before waivers, please everybody go put in a waiver claim for a tight end.
Don't let him have a tight end, please, guys. Please, no one let him have a tight end. And no one can drop a tight end on accident and let Nolan have them. That is such a good plan. Please, everyone subscribe.
I mean, there's a good chance. Does Mark Ingram get dropped this week? Not Mark Ingram. I'm sorry. Mark Andrews?
Please, Cameron, just trade him. Do not let Nolan have him.
Does Andrews get dropped? Because he's got likely. I mean, you're not going to keep them both. Anyway, last team to look at here, the Aussies. I'll go first. Sorry, Mozzie, I'm a big fan of you. Not a big fan of your team. I don't like either of your running backs. I think your quarterback's good. I think that Hill is good, but he's got that home run ball. I think Kelsey is way better than he played. So I do think you have some solid pieces, but I don't think I feel like you go with the 0 running back strategy, and I've never been high on Wilson. He's, I'm not high on Rodgers and this guy. So I think for that reason, if my comeback player of the year pick of Chubb is correct, I like your team a hell of a lot more. So if Chubb does come back, is the comeback player of the year, I like your team a hell of a lot more. But if he doesn't, then I think the lack of running back is gonna be tough to overcome. What do you guys think?
I think Vinny's division is probably the most equal amongst the 4 teams, but this team right here is the only reason I'm not talking divisions again, and how I complain about that for 15 years, because this team's so bad I don't want to talk about the division, because it's going to come down to Sylvie or Austin. Whichever one has first teams between these two or has better teams between those two is going to make that division the number 1 division.
Well, Sylvie's not in the same division as Austin, so that's going to be challenging.
No, I'm saying for the hardest division, you, Matt, and Luis have good teams.
Gotcha.
Chris, Nolan have good teams. I think it's going to come down to Austin and Sylvie. Whoever's better will make the division the strongest this year, because I just think the only reason Vinny's division can't be as strong as I think they're all just so equal, to be honest. It's really hard to distinguish. So I'm just kind of joking around right now, but because of Austin's team, I can't go on about how bad, how amazing our divisions are.
I only have 2 things. Number 1 is I just feel really bad because Austin's the one that listened to the podcast and said I thought you guys would be grading teams, and I equally hate this team. If anybody's ever debating the 0 running back strategy, this is why you don't do it in DoD.
So true.
Let's just throw that out there.
Question though, if Garrett Wilson was as good as all the fantasy experts thought he would be, and Kelsey has a normal Kelsey game instead of his bad game, does that change your opinion on this?
No, if you flip that, if Kelsey's the normal Kelsey's been for except for last year, the last 3 years for that, then I would like this team a lot.
That's what I'm saying. Like if this is a 10-point guy and this is a 10-point guy, does that change your?
Wilson's not a 10-point guy in this league. That's what
I don't think he is either. But all the fantasy experts had him as like a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. I don't. So I'm asking if you considered in a world where this guy is a top 10 wide receiver, and let's just assume Kelsey's himself, do you like the 0 RB with this team any better?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you're talking to someone who went 0 RB for 2 years in a row. I went.
Yeah. So I think we're all kind of on the same page that 0 RB, you need all the other pieces to fall in line, and I don't think it fell in line with Wilson.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I could be wrong. Look, it's one game. It's his first game ever with Aaron Rodgers. Well, second if you want to count the whole play that Aaron Rodgers played last year. But yeah. So let's wrap this thing up. We've gotten we didn't get your playoff team, so we're gonna go now to. Hold on, let's go to the rosters here. Or not the rosters, but the. How do I see the standings? Where are the standings at? Standings, duh. All right.
Let's also make it clear for anyone who ever listens that's outside of the podcast, this is like a full-on medical doctor, Yale Med, and this is his team, so...
So? That has nothing to do with this. Anyway,
That's why he's so amazing.
Anywho, so let's give our playoff team. So I'm going to go first. I think, obviously, the Sharks going to win the Intensity Division. Just best team by far, hands down. I'm going to shock the world and say that Break and the Flying Penguins are going to win the Integrity Division. And Nolan and the Spark Plugs are going to win the Intelligence Division. We're going to have all Sparks playoff except for Sylvie. I'm sorry, Sylvie. I do think you got really unlucky this week, but I don't think you're going to be the fourth team in the playoffs. Hold on, I got to pick my fourth playoff team. My fourth playoff team is going to be... That's tough. I don't know who it's going to be. I got to be a homer and pick my division. So I guess I'll pick Matt to run it back. I don't want that to be the case. I really don't. But I'll pick Matt to run it back so that the Sharks and Professor Chaos both get out of our division, and then Break and Dad as well. Picking a couple of couple of staples with me and Matt, perennial playoff teams, and then a couple of super dark horses there. But we'll see. That's who I'm taking. I legitimately do think that Break has the best team in his division. My dad has the best team in his division, and I'm biased to think I have the best team in mine. So I do think those are more legitimate. And then I'll take Matt because it's hard to take who the fourth team's going to be. But I did like Matt's team going into week one. So even though week one changed my opinion a little bit, I'll still take that. Vinny, you're four. What? Are you talking to us? You're talking to Dakota.
No, you. I thought you said that Mitch said he wanted to go next. So
did he?
I was gonna let you go, but it's fine. I'll go.
I was gonna Mitch close the show. Now we're closing on our weakest member. We can't close on the weakness.
Okay.
I lead us off, and you're the anchor, Mitch. We got the fluff in the middle. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay.
So, all right, I'm gonna go with kind of a little bit of some come behind teams. So, I'm gonna go with Cameron winning our division, starting the season 0-1. Chris winning his division, starting the season 0-1.
No.
Yeah. I will say that actually, even though you guys talk about how strong Alex and Matt's division is, I'm looking at a team to pick for a win, and I just don't see one. So I'm going to go with Alex's team because I think the core is the best, and I think Dak can carry him there, which leaves one open spot, and that's a really tough one. I'm probably going to have to go with Nolan because I think Nolan's is also one of the best teams. So
At least you picked two from my division.
I'm going Nolan, Chris, Alex, and Cameron.
All right, well, let's go to actual out of La La Land here in Neverland. Apparently, we all just got stuck in the Neverland and started playing with Captain Hook because I don't miss the playoffs ever. So you guys not picking me is a dick move. Second of all, I'm going to do the opposite, Alex. I'm going to go all black. I'm going to go Matt winning the division, shocker, shocker. I'm going to go Miles winning the division, shocker, shocker. And I'm going to win the division. And the fourth, because it always comes from the intelligence division, because all these other divisions are a joke compared to us, will be Nolan. Unfortunately, I don't want to go against Nolan in the playoffs, but I think Nolan's team is scary.
Do you want to make a pie bet on whether or not more Sparks or more Blacks make the playoffs?
Oh, wow, that's a great one. I don't know if I want to be... I love Nolan and I love Sylvia. It's like the only Sparks I'm rooting against is you and...
Not that you're rooting against us, but just that, like, if more Blacks make the playoffs, you get to pie me. If more Sparks make the playoffs, I get to pie you.
With Matt and
if it's even, we both get to pie Vinny, and if it's none of us, Vinny gets to pie us.
Nolan has a great team, so I think it's a great bet, but I'm going to have to take this bet because if I got Matt on the same team as me in anything, I think I'm going to go with that.
Okay, so just and Vinny, are you cool with that? I know. Are you okay with it, Vinny?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm good with that bet.
I mean, I know it's kind of unfair to you because there's a world where it's like 2 blacks and 2 sparks and you still get pied, but yeah. So
You pick a side.
well, no, because this way someone gets pied no matter what. Because I don't want a tie to just mean nothing happens, right? I want something to happen.
Gotcha.
So the end of episode pie bet this week is going to be at the end of the season. If more sparks make the playoffs, I will pie Mitchell. If more blacks make the playoffs than sparks, Mitchell will pie me. If it is even and there's at least one of each, we both pie Vinny. And if it's none of us make it, then honestly, Vinny, you can probably pie us twice in that case if none of us make it between the 7 of us in the league.
For future reference, if Alex ever runs for Congress or anything, blacks is the last name of 3 people in this league.
That's a good point. Yes, just so we're clear, I have introduced him as Mitchell Black. His brother Matthew Black and Miles Black are also in the league. When I say that, I'm not referring to people of African persuasion. I'm referring to their last name. Thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. I know we did. Sign off, fellas. Peace out.